The DMV hallway was filled to the brim with people who had clearly been waiting for too long. The air conditioner was not providing them any relief as the atmosphere started to become unbearable due to stuffiness and lack of ventilation. This forced many of them to resort to fanning themselves with hats and folders in a desperate attempt at getting some fresh air. A young security guard was tending to the crowd with a lackadaisical demeanor. It was a sight I had been seeing for quite some time. The same elderly, more experienced workers were there, people from various different backgrounds and their typical work clothing coupled with new mothers attempting to calm their crying children. The security guard noticed the weary and haggard facial expression of the person walking down the hall of a mundane DMV in this ordinary town. It was nothing out of the ordinary, yet something that made them stand out. The man with the broad shoulder and faded blue jacket drew attention in the crowd, despite his attire looking similar to that of military personnel. His aged appearance and clothes suggested a distinguished air amongst the others. He was not dressed smartly or properly like a naval warrior, but rather had a disheveled and intimidating look. Half of his face was covered by a large burn. And his hands, which he kept hidden in his pockets, were similarly disfigured. He towered over the other people in the hallway, looking at a place and anxious. He kept glancing at his watch, aware that the DMV office was closing for lunch. Soon, the security guard had a grin on his face as he said to the man, "Looks like you won't make it to your appointment today. Old. Lucy and Denise will not be sticking around any longer." Lucy and Denise were middle-aged women who worked at the DMV, and they were tired of dealing with the long lines of hopeful visitors. They had become arrogant and only seemed to care if the visitors brought them money or expensive gifts. There were also a new employee working in the young clerk, Jennifer, was different from her colleagues, Lucy and Denise. She was a recent graduate of an orphanage. She had no significant wealth and did not accept bribes. She worked diligently, following the example of her beloved teacher, Mrs. McKenna, who had taken her under her wing like a. Lucy and Denise were pleased to have a straight orphan working in the department. That's what they called Jennifer behind her back. Lucy and Denise took advantage of Jennifer's willingness to work and often left her with most of the work, allowing them to relax and read magazines or go shopping during their lunch breaks, and often returning late to them. They had a favorite topic of conversation, which was gossiping and making fun of Jennifer's appearance. They did not want to acknowledge that Jennifer, who was modestly and tallly dressed with minimal makeup on a fresh face, was 100 times more beautiful than they were. Instead of working on their own shortcomings and trying to improve themselves, Lucy and Denise enjoyed spreading rumors and talking ill of Jennifer's hard-working attitude was considered dull by Lucy and Denise. Her single status also became a source of ridicule, earning her the nickname Bird among the two women. But with only 15 minutes remaining before the lunch break, Lucy and Denise picked up their expensive bags with passive expressions and left the office with dignity. The man with the burned face was taken aback and, "Girls, please don't leave. I've been waiting in line since this morning." Lucy and Denise ignored the man's plea and did not even bother to look at him, but he persisted, his voice filled with desperation. "Please understand, I came all the way from my village. My boss leaves in 20 minutes, and it's the last one for today. I just need to change the photo on my driver's license, please." Lucy replied, irate. "Listen, old man. There are many of you here, and there are just 3 of us. Come back after lunch break," the man pleaded further, "please. I can't come back after lunch. My mother is waiting at home. She has a sick heart. You must understand." The man tried to plead with the angry DMV clerks, but they didn't listen to him. Denise's face twisted with disgust as she shouted, "Guards, get the spellum outta here immediate." The security guard, who had been dozing off, quickly woke up and followed Denise's orders. He pushed the man out of the room without thinking twice. He was scared of losing his job. He didn't want to disappoint his wife, who would leave him if he lost his job. The guard pushed the man out the door and locked it with a key. When Jennifer heard the commotion, she ran out to see what was happening. She went outside to catch up with the man, but Lucy stopped her with a sneer on her face. "If you help every customer like that, you'll never have enough time to finish all the work. One person helping everyone else will just slow everyone down." But Jennifer ignored them and called out to the man. He turned to her with hopeful eyes. When Jennifer saw the Burns car in his face, she hesitated but quickly composed herself and, "Please come back to the office. I will take care of everything, and you'll make it in time for your bus." As Jennifer worked on the man's paperwork, he sat hunched over in a chair staring blankly at one spot. He muttered, "Is there really no justice in this world? What for? What for? I risked my life for them." Jennifer handed the completed document to the man who was still visibly upset. "Here you go, please," Jennifer said as she handed the document to him, "and please, I'm sorry for what my colleagues said, their work is stressful and they're burned out. Unfortunately, this is what happens to people at the office, sometimes the men with the burned scars. Thank Jennifer and wish her happiness before leaving the." An hour later, Lucy and Denise came back from their lunch break and were met with angry glares from the people waiting in line. Someone in the crowd said, "Insolent, no words. The girl is working alone. While they just walk around." The anger of the people was echoed by others. "No, we can't let this go. We should file a complaint." Someone signed, sadly. "What good will it do? They'll just get fired and replaced by others. It's better to just give them money and let them choke on it." The day continued as normal. In the evening, Lucy and Denise laughed and mocked. "Jennifer, we have never seen such a fool, and you'll be the first one. That man lied to you and got help out of pity, and you got tricked," but the girl didn't pay attention to her colleagues. She quickly went home where her beloved cat was waiting for her. Felix probably got bored and tore the wallpaper again. Jennifer thought with a smile, happily tapping her heels on the pavement. A few days later, the authorities paid a visit to the DMV. The guard perked up when he saw the city mayor, Mr. Reasonzone, getting out of his expensive SUV with his entourage. Mitchell Reckenzone confidently marched down to the narrow corridor and firmly grasped the door handle. When he heard "busy, no need to roam around without a call," he flown the door open to the office. Lucy and Denise were frozen in place, unable to speak. Their coffee mugs trembled in their ringed hands. Jennifer looked on with interest as the formidable boss exclaimed, "What kind of nonsense is going on?" The mayor continued, "The other day, an honorable resident of our city and war hero, Chris Dober, came here and you humiliated him." Lucy and Denise tried to defend themselves, batting their eyelashes, but the mayor didn't even want to listen. It turns out that the hero missed a bus after all. Desperate, he decided to walk with the hope of catching an expensive SUV stopped in front of Chris. The driver was the mayor himself, who recognized the honorable citizen and felt it was his duty to take him to his destination. Chris Dober, a submarine midshipman, served in a nuclear submarine for a long time. One day, a terrible fire broke out on the ship, threatening to turn into a large-scale disaster that could destroy dozens of human lives and cause irreparable damage to the environment. After putting out the fire, Mr. Dober received severe burns and became disabled. Chris was discharged from the service and sent home for a well-deserved rest, but in his hometown, new troubles awaited. His wife, seeing the condition he was in, quickly packed her suitcase and left him. Later, Chris found out that his ex-wife was having an affair with a small market trader. After that, she was seen with another guy and then another, an unemployed drunkard. Mr. Dober went to his village to live with his elderly mother and led a solitary life. He started drinking but did not lose. He helped his mother with housework, completely forgetting to take care of his appearance. He forgot that many people still judge a person by their clothes, so he came to the DMV office in shabby clothes that made him feel comfortable in the village. The inhabitants had long known and gotten used to his old midshipman's pea jacket and the scars on his face. After the mayor paid a visit, both Lucy and Denise were let. And Jennifer was given the role of head of the DMV office. Although the position came with added responsibilities and concerns, Jennifer embraced a challenge and made an effort to treat customers with kindness. She assembled a young team and the DMV began operating efficiently. As a result, customers no longer had to wait on long lines, and the employees received positive feedback from satisfied visitors. Jennifer's personal life also took a turn for the better. When she met a charming man who worked as a camera operator for a local television station, the journalists visited the DMV to film a story about Jennifer and her profession, and the young operator was taken with Jennifer's friendly and open demeanor. They went on a walk together after work, and soon after he invited her to the movie. A month later, Jennifer and her new boyfriend Greg became inseparable, and her cat, who had previously been destructive due to boredom, stopped tearing up the wallpaper as he was content with a new love in the household. On Memorial Day, Jennifer and her friends, including Greg, who was filming a story for the evening news, attended the gathering. Jennifer was invited as a guest of honor, being recognized as the best social worker. While on the stage, she saw a distinguished man in full dress uniform. The sailor's chest was adorned with medals and decorations. Jennifer recognized a man as Chris Dober, a brave hero. The sight of him made her heart race with. Today the hero gave a heartfelt speech to the residents. He shared his life story and spoke about his deeds modestly, knowing that he fulfilled his duties and served this country not for the sake of receiving medals. The most important thing is to be human. Not everyone can put themselves in harm's way or sacrifice themselves for others. For me, the epitome of honesty and integrity was a kind and lovely girl who reached out to me when everyone else had turned away. As Jennifer heard her name being called, she saw the hero extending an invitation for her to come up to the podium. With the help of others, she climbed up onto a tall platform. The city erupted into loud cheers and applause when the honorary citizen handed her a beautiful bunch of roses. Later that night, while watching the news, Greg couldn't help but beam proudly and share with Jennifer how much he truly loves her, a sentiment captured on camera. Jennifer complimented him by saying that he looked beautiful on the screen like a movie star. To which, he replied that apparently the camera loves a person, an indication that the videographer was smitten with what they had captured. Jennifer chuckled, "Greg, you naughty character. I may look all glamorous like a movie star here on screen, but in real life I'm just plain Jane, isn't that right?" Greg's affectionate embrace of his beloved, followed by his sincere words, inspired admiration for their relationship. I find the story and characters to be very touching, emphasizing the deep bond between them. If you have any advice or strategies that could help someone going through tough times, please share them. Your insights could be useful for people in need of support. If you liked the story, show your appreciation by liking and subscribing. It would be greatly appreciated. To receive more content, just click the bell button. We truly appreciate your interest and look forward to serving you again soon.